Kevin was a brilliant programmer, the kind of genius who could bend code to his will, turning lines of text into intricate algorithms that could do almost anything. He wasn't just talented, he was obsessed. The digital world was his playground, and the dark web was his domain. Kevin made a living doing freelance work in the shadows, creating secure systems for those who needed them, designing and selling hacking tools, and occasionally engaging in some morally ambiguous activities. His skills were unmatched, and his services were in demand. But Kevin wasn't content. He wanted more, something darker, more thrilling. One night, as Kevin delved deeper into the dark web, he found himself intrigued by the idea of exploring the deep web. It was a place known for being a digital abyss, a realm where the most illicit of activities took place. The challenge of accessing it, of outsmarting the layers of security and encryption, was too enticing to resist. He spent weeks preparing, learning about Tor networks, cryptographic methods, and various anonymization techniques. Finally, he felt ready. Kevin accessed the deep web using a combination of Tor and a highly secure VPN he had designed himself, ensuring his anonymity was airtight. The deep web was a chaotic expanse, a place where anything could be bought or sold if one knew where to look. Among the usual assortment of illegal goods, drugs, stolen data, counterfeit documents, Kevin stumbled upon a site that chilled him to the bone, a marketplace for murder. It was a grim, highly organized platform that advertised different types of hits, each with its own price tag. The site was disturbingly professional, with services ranging from basic elimination to more complex accidents or disappearances. Prices varied depending on the target's profile and the method requested. There were options for staging suicides, car accidents, or even creating elaborate scenarios to ensure no trace of foul play was detected. Kevin found himself morbidly fascinated. The site had a section dedicated to testimonials, all anonymized, of course. They read like chilling success stories, complete with reviews and ratings. Kevin felt a strange thrill reading about these real-life horrors, the kind of rush that came from knowing he was treading in the darkest depths of humanity. One particular service caught his eye, the ultimate game. It was a hit service with a twist. The client could hire a hitman to hunt them down. The idea was to create the most thrilling, adrenaline-pumping experience imaginable, a real-life game of cat and mouse with the ultimate stakes. The price was exorbitant, but Kevin was intrigued. He had always been an adventurous spirit, craving the next big thrill, the next adrenaline rush. This was it, the ultimate challenge, the perfect way to test his skills, his intellect, and his nerve. After much deliberation, Kevin decided to go through with it. He contacted the service, using the encrypted messaging system provided by the site. The instructions were precise and chilling. He was to wire a substantial amount of cryptocurrency to a designated account, after which the game would begin. The service assured complete confidentiality and professionalism. The hitman would have no personal vendetta, just a job to do. Once the transaction was confirmed, Kevin received a cryptic message. The game begins now. Good luck. Kevin felt a thrill of excitement and fear. He had just put a price on his own head, hired a professional killer to hunt him down. The reality of what he'd done hit him like a cold wave. He was now a target, his life at the mercy of a faceless assassin. But Kevin was prepared, or so he thought. He had planned meticulously, setting up escape routes, safe houses, and an elaborate system of false leads to throw the hitman off his trail. The first few days were quiet, almost anticlimactic. Kevin stayed low, moving from place to place, using disposable phones and paying for everything in cash. He felt confident, even cocky, believing he could outsmart the hitman. But then, strange things started happening. he noticed a black sedan tailing him at a distance. A shadowy figure seemed to lurk outside the cafes he frequented, always just out of sight. Kevin's nerves began to fray. The game was becoming real, too real. One night, while driving a borrowed car from a friend, Kevin decided to leave the city and head into the countryside. He hoped to find some respite, a place to think clearly. He found a small, rundown motel by the highway, a place where he thought he could lay low for a while. The night was thick with an oppressive silence, the kind that made every creak and rustle seem louder. Kevin checked into a room, trying to calm his racing heart. He knew the hitman was close, too close. As he lay on the bed, staring at the peeling paint on the ceiling, Kevin heard a soft knock on the door. His heart stopped. He hadn't ordered any room service, hadn't spoken to anyone. His mind raced, considering his options. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Kevin's pulse quickened. He quietly got up, grabbed his backpack, and headed towards the window. Just as he was about to open it, the door burst open. Kevin glanced back to see a masked figure, gun drawn, stepping into the room. Without thinking, Kevin jumped through the window, landing awkwardly on the ground below. Pain shot through his leg, but adrenaline propelled him forward. He sprinted to the car, fumbling with the keys, his hand shaking uncontrollably. As he sped away, he glanced in the rearview mirror to see the hitman emerging from the motel, calmly watching him drive off. Kevin's mind raced. How had the hitman found him? He had been so careful, so thorough in covering his tracks. Then it hit him, the car. The car was the common denominator, the one thing that connected all his movements. Kevin drove aimlessly, his mind a whirl of panic and fear. He had to ditch the car, but where? And how could he stay ahead of a professional killer? He decided to head towards a remote mountain area he knew from a hiking trip years ago. It was isolated, rugged, the perfect place to hide. As he drove, Kevin checked the car for any tracking devices, tearing through the seats, the dashboard, even the engine compartment. He found nothing, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the hitman was still close, too close. He reached the mountains as dawn broke, the sky a wash of grey and pink. Kevin abandoned the car on a dirt road, grabbing only the essentials from his backpack, some food, water, a flashlight, and a map. He started up a trail, hoping to lose himself in the dense forest. The air was cool, the silence broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Kevin's breath came in ragged gasps, his body aching from the night's ordeals. He walked for hours, the forest closing in around him, the trees like silent sentinels watching his every move. Kevin's paranoia grew with each step. Every snap of a twig, every flutter of a bird made his heart leap. He felt hunted, like prey, a rabbit caught in the gaze of a hawk. As night fell, Kevin found a small cave and decided to rest. He knew he couldn't keep running forever. He needed a plan, a way to turn the tables. The night was pitch black, the cave cold and damp. Kevin huddled against the wall, trying to think. He remembered something from his darkweb dealings, a jammer device he had once helped develop, designed to disrupt tracking signals. It was a long shot, but if he could get to a place with tools and equipment, he might be able to build one. The nearest town was miles away, but it was his only hope. At dawn, Kevin set out again, heading towards the town. The journey was grueling, his body protesting with every step. He hadn't eaten or slept properly in days, and the fear was like a constant weight on his chest. As he neared the town, Kevin knew he had to be cautious. The hitman could be anywhere, waiting for him to slip up. He kept to the back alleys, moving like a shadow, avoiding the main roads. He found a small electronics store and slipped inside, using cash to buy the components he needed. The store clerk gave him a curious look, but Kevin ignored it, his mind focused on the task at hand. He found a secluded spot behind an old warehouse and began assembling the jammer. His hands shook with exhaustion and fear, but he managed to piece it together. As he activated the device, a wave of relief washed over him. For the first time in days, he felt a glimmer of hope. But Kevin's relief was short-lived. As he made his way back towards the forest, he felt eyes on him. He turned, his heart pounding, and saw the hitman standing at the end of the alley, watching him with cold, calculating eyes. Kevin's blood ran cold. How had the hitman found him? The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. The hitman hadn't been tracking him. He had been watching him, following his every move, staying just out of sight like a shadow. Panic surged through Kevin. He turned and ran, his mind a blur of terror and confusion. He darted through the alleys, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear the hitman's footsteps behind him, methodical, unhurried. Kevin's mind raced, trying to think of a way out. He spotted a construction site up ahead and veered towards it, hoping to lose the hitman in the maze of machinery and half-built structures. Kevin ducked behind a stack of metal beams, his heart pounding so loud he was sure the hitman could hear it. He peered around the corner, but the site was eerily quiet. He had lost sight of the hitman. Kevin's mind raced. He knew he couldn't stay hidden forever. He needed to keep moving to find a way out of this nightmare. As he crept through the construction site, Kevin felt a sudden, sharp pain in his shoulder. He gasped, stumbling forward. He looked down and saw a tranquilizer dart sticking out of his arm. The world began to spin, his vision blurring. Kevin tried to run, but his legs felt like lead. He collapsed to the ground, his body heavy and unresponsive. As darkness closed in, the last thing he saw was the hitman standing over him, a cold, emotionless look in his eyes. Kevin awoke in a dimly lit room, his head throbbing. He tried to move, but his arms and legs were bound to a chair. Panic surged through him as he looked around, trying to get his bearings. The room was bare, the walls concrete, the air cold and damp. The only light came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows on the floor. The hitman stood in front of him, silent and unmoving. Kevin felt a wave of fear and helplessness wash over him. He was trapped, at the mercy of a cold-blooded killer. The hitman stepped forward, his face still hidden behind a mask. He spoke, his voice calm and measured. "You wanted a game," the hitman said, his tone devoid of emotion. "But games have rules, and you've broken them." Kevin's mind raced, trying to understand what the hitman meant. He had hired the hitman, set the rules. How could he have broken them? "You tried to interfere," the hitman continued. "To disrupt the game. That's not allowed." Kevin realized with a sinking feeling that the jammer must have been the problem. He had tried to disrupt the tracking signals to gain an advantage. But the hitman hadn't been using technology to track him. He had been watching, following, always one step ahead. Fear gripped Kevin as the hitman reached into his coat and pulled out a syringe. He stepped closer, and Kevin struggled against the bonds, his mind a whirl of terror. He had played a dangerous game, and now he was at the mercy of a professional killer, with no way out. The hitman injected the syringe into Kevin's arm, the cold liquid spreading through his veins. Kevin felt his body go numb, his vision blurring. The hitman leaned in close, his voice a whisper. "This is the end of the game, Kevin," he said. "You wanted to test yourself, to see if you could survive. But in the end, you were just another target." As Kevin's consciousness faded, he felt a crushing sense of despair. He had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and now he was about to pay the ultimate price. The world went dark, and Kevin knew no more. When Kevin woke up again, he found himself lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to an IV. He blinked, trying to clear his foggy mind. He was alive. Somehow, he had survived. A nurse entered the room and Kevin tried to speak, but his throat was dry and sore. The nurse gave him a glass of water and smiled. "You're lucky to be alive," she said. "They found you in an abandoned warehouse, barely breathing. You were hypothermic, and there were signs of sedative overdose. But you're going to be okay." Kevin's mind raced, trying to piece together what had happened. The last thing he remembered was the hitman injecting him, and then nothing. How had he ended up here, and why was he still alive? The nurse seemed to sense his confusion. "The police are looking into it," she said. "But they haven't found any leads. Whoever did this to you was very careful." Lying in the hospital bed, Kevin felt the weight of his decision settle over him. The thrill-seeking that had driven him to hire a hitman to hunt him had turned into a nightmare beyond his control. The hitman had spared him, but the encounter had left Kevin changed, haunted by the shadows of his own making. The police found no leads, leaving Kevin with the unsettling realization that the hitman was still out there, possibly watching, waiting. Kevin had escaped with his life, but the experience had etched deep scars into his psyche. He knew he could never return to his old life, nor shake the feeling that the game was still being played, the rules now unknown to him. As Kevin lay in the sterile hospital room, he knew he had been given a second chance, but it came with a price. The fear and uncertainty were now a part of him, a chilling reminder that the line between thrill and terror is razor thin. He would have to live with the haunting question: was he truly free, or was this just another twist in the game orchestrated by the hitman? The answer, Kevin realized, might be something he'd never know, leaving him forever looking over his shoulder in fear. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. As we follow Kevin's harrowing journey, we're reminded that curiosity can lead us down dangerous paths, and some games are better left unplayed. Remember, always tread carefully and make smart choices. Good night, stay safe, and be mindful of the shadows that may be watching.